What if Bob Dole won the presidency in 1996? The 1996 presidential election was, in many ways, a crossroads for America. Bill Clinton's victory secured his centrist New Democrat policies and set the stage for a late-century economic boom and societal transformation. But what if Clinton's tenure had been cut short, and Bob Dole had claimed the Oval Office instead? What would America have looked like under the leadership of a conservative war hero, seasoned legislator, and staunch advocate for smaller government? This video tackles the profound what-if scenario of a Dole presidency, exploring its possible effects on domestic and foreign policies, political dynamics, and the very fabric of U.S. history. Let's dive in and debate whether a Dole presidency would have been a prudent correction or a missed opportunity for the nation. Bob Dole's domestic policy promises centered on fiscal discipline, a principle he had championed for decades. As president, Dole likely would have pursued balancing the federal budget with an urgency that defined his campaign rhetoric. By the mid-1990s, the U.S. was on the cusp of paying down deficits, but Clinton's approach included strategic investments in social programs. The question is, would Dole have taken a more austere route? Imagine a scenario where programs like Medicare, welfare, and education funding faced sharper cuts. Clinton's welfare reforms were already severe, but under Dole, these reforms might have gone even further, creating a leaner, but potentially harsher, social safety net. Would the economic boom of the late 90s, bolstered by the tech revolution, have been dampened by these cuts? Or perhaps Dole's fiscal conservatism would have accelerated long-term stability. Tax policy under Dole would have had a distinct flavor. His focus on reducing the burden of big government implies he may have pushed for deeper tax cuts than Clinton, particularly favoring businesses and high-income earners. This potential trickle-down approach aligns with Reagan-era politics, but would it have worsened income inequality during a period of increasing economic stratification? Dole's presidency might also have impacted cultural battles across America. His campaign frequently invoked family values, and his support among more traditional conservatives suggests a deliberate pushback against what many Republicans called the moral decline of Clinton's America. Could Dole have restricted federal support for progressive education policies, LGBTQ+ rights, or women's health care? How would this have shaped the national mood? While presidential powers are limited, the symbolic weight of Dole, a traditionalist steeped in old-school patriotism, might have kindled cultural shifts that diverged dramatically from the Clinton presidency. Dole's hawkish stance on foreign policy suggests a fundamentally different geopolitical approach during the late 1990s. Clinton's presidency is remembered for its reluctance to engage in large-scale military intervention, instead favoring diplomacy and coalition building. Could the world have looked much different if President Dole had replaced caution with confrontation? Consider U.S. involvement in the Balkans. Clinton's cautious but decisive intervention in Bosnia captured global attention and goodwill. Would Dole, a prominent critic of inaction in the face of genocide, have taken a harder and possibly quicker stance? Would NATO's role have expanded even sooner, potentially reshaping U.S.-European relationships? Then there's the question of terrorism. By 1996, al-Qaeda's growing threat was only beginning to register on Washington's radar. Dole, with his focus on firm international leadership and defense spending, may have directed resources toward counterterrorism earlier than Clinton. Could this have set the stage for a drastically different U.S. response to the rising tide of global terrorism? Would 9/11 as we know it have even happened? On trade policies, Dole's presidency may have introduced continuity, but with an edge. Dole supported NAFTA and other free trade initiatives, but his business-friendly policy orientation may have strengthened ties with international corporations, possibly exacerbating debates about American manufacturing job losses. Or, his steadier diplomatic hand might have navigated these tensions more effectively. Would Dole have taken a tougher stance on China, confronting rising economic competitors before their dominance became undeniable? The Middle East is another area that invites speculation. Clinton's approach to Iraq and Saddam Hussein was calculated restraint, employing sanctions, airstrikes, and diplomacy to keep Saddam in check. Dole may have escalated this confrontation further, owing to his distrust of despots and hardline perspective on national security. How far would a President Dole have gone in reshaping this complicated region? Stepping away from policy, the bigger picture comes into focus. How would Bob Dole's presidency have impacted the broader political landscape of 1990s America? In winning the White House, Dole would have reversed Clinton's charismatic dominance, potentially altering the political identity of Democrats and Republicans alike. With Dole in the Oval Office and Republicans controlling Congress, America would have experienced one of the most unified conservative governments in decades. The rightward shift could have sparked a revival of conservative governance reminiscent of Reagan's era. But unity can breed fractures. Dole's moderate conservatism, rooted in pragmatism and tradition, may not have gelled with the rising tide of far-right ideologues within the Republican Party, a prelude to modern-day polarization. Meanwhile, on the left, Democrats would certainly have reevaluated their strategies. Most likely, a Dole presidency would have enriched the appeal of progressives, who might have viewed Clinton's centrism as a failed compromise. Could a Dole victory in 1996 have actually paved the way for a more radicalized Democratic platform in the 2000s? And then there's the curious question of bipartisanship, or the lack thereof. Clinton and Vice President Al Gore would likely have positioned themselves as vocal opposition, emphasizing Dole's drastic conservative reforms as an overreach. Could this have slightly pulled the Democrats and Republicans closer to compromise, considering Dole's reputation for pragmatic negotiations? Or would it have deepened the roots of today's political toxicity? Lastly, one must consider the aftershocks. In a Dole 1996 victory, what happens in the 2000 presidential race? Would George W. Bush still emerge as the Republican frontrunner, riding Dole's legacy of conservative leadership? Alternatively, would a fatigued electorate swing back toward the left, potentially ushering in a Gore or even a more progressive presidency at the turn of the century? The permutations are endless and tantalizing. Beyond the immediate changes, a Dole presidency would have had ripple effects altering the course of history. Programs like the Children's Health Insurance Program, CHIP, a hallmark of Clinton's legislative achievements, might never have come to fruition under Dole's administration. What would the long-term effects on child health care in America have been? Similarly, how might welfare reforms have unfolded differently? Clinton's Welfare Reform Act of 1996 already drew criticism for dismantling key safety nets. Under Dole, who championed even stricter welfare limits, we may have seen even greater shrinkage in assistance programs. Would this have increased poverty and inequality? Or, as conservative theory posits, created a more independent and self-reliant populace? Key global agreements from that era might also have faced challenges. For example, in 1998, Irish leaders brokered the Good Friday Agreement under Clinton's careful diplomacy. Could Dole, less versed in peace-building and more inclined to swift action, have mishandled such delicate negotiations? Or might his decisiveness have ended conflicts even sooner? On a cultural level, Dole's image, traditional, conservative, rooted in blue-collar patriotism, could have reshaped national identity in subtle ways. Clinton embodied a youthful optimism, even amid scandal. Dole's symbolism as an aging war hero might have drawn the nation toward nostalgia and reverence at a time when generational shifts were already reshaping American culture. How would his presence have influenced everything from Hollywood narratives to grassroots movements? Of course, predicting what could have happened is an exercise steeped in uncertainty. The reality of governing often diverges from campaign promises. Dole, despite his legislative experience and principled conservatism, would have faced significant challenges in balancing his ambitions with political realities. Could a President Dole have maintained favor, even among Republicans, as entitlement cuts stirred public backlash? How would his administration have managed crises unforeseen in 1996? There's no telling how wars, recessions, or natural disasters could have tested his leadership and dramatically altered his legacy. Additionally, Dole's presidency would still have been constrained by the limits of executive power and America's layered bureaucracy. The grand visions he put forth during his campaign may have been tempered by compromises, and political resistance from Democrats embittered by their defeat. Ultimately, Bob Dole's presidency represents more than just a political or historical what-if. It's a reflection on leadership itself. Dole's style, unapologetically firm, inherently pragmatic, and rooted in service to country, was a sharp contrast to Clinton's charisma and deft adaptability. Would such stoic leadership have fostered bipartisanship, stabilizing an increasingly fractured political sphere? Or would it have exacerbated national divisions? Maybe the true lesson lies in how elections shape our nation's trajectory. The presidency is not just about policies. It's about setting a tone, a vision, and defining an era. Would Dole's America have been a leaner, politically steadier country, or one grappling with growing pains from conservative overreach? What do you think? Would a Bob Dole presidency from 1996 to 2000 have been an era of prudence, opportunity, and unity, or one of challenges and missed expectations? Let's debate. The consequences of one election ripple far beyond campaign slogans, and imagining their alternatives offers us profound insights into the nation we've become. Like and subscribe for more from History Twist, and don't forget to request your own videos in the comments.